Hello, everyone. Hello, everyone. This is your boy Dcot with the Game Time Network with a special episode of Cots Corner today. I've got my friend Kelsey Aaron with AFSP, the Indiana chapter. With here with me today to talk about AFSP, suicide prevention, a lot of other great things as well. So, as I said earlier, Kelsey, yes, I'm nervous as hell, but I'm gonna be okay. Welcome to the show, Kelsey.
Thank you so much for having us. It's a huge, huge honor. And we know there's lots of worthy causes and lots of things going on, but we're really honored to be here and looking forward to connecting with you guys today. My name is Kelsey Aaron. I'm the executive director for the Indiana chapter of the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. We're a statewide chapter, but for those of you listening from other parts of the country, we have chapters in all 50 states, Washington, D.C., and Puerto Rico. So if you have family or friends or you happen to be not a Hoosier, we're more than happy to help get you connected to your local chapter. I started volunteering with AFSP in 2016 and became staff in 2018. So I have the privilege to wake up every day and love the work that I do alongside our amazing volunteers.
That's awesome to hear. That's so awesome. And again, this is basically your 10-year anniversary this year, right?
Yeah, as a volunteer. Yes, it is. Yes.
Absolutely. That is great. So, Kelsey, I know that we had talked about a few things, and I've got some questions, right, for our viewers. A lot of folks kind of wonder how can they get to things and all of that. So I want to go to the questions, and then I'm going to share a little bit about our site and what you all are doing there. But, from a question perspective, none in any particular order, but I want to just take our time and give you the opportunity to answer them in the best way. First off the top is, what is the single biggest misconception that the public has about suicide or our mental health crisis?
No, I think that's a great question. And something that comes up frequently, even in these 10 years that I've been volunteering and been staff, is that if we talk about suicide, we're going to give someone that idea. And that then causes hesitation for people to lean in and offer support and all of those things. And so that is the biggest myth. We know from research that talking about suicide does not give someone the idea. It actually helps open the dialogue and have a conversation around mental health. And I think it's key and important for us all to, lean in, support one another. Oftentimes we hear, if you're struggling, or if you're having thoughts of suicide or you're having a bad day, reach out, let somebody know. But I often, that is the case, and we need to continue to encourage that. But I often liken that to, telling someone with a broken leg to walk. And I think it's vital and important for us as family, as friends, as neighbors, as coaches to lean in. And if we're recognizing that someone might be struggling, having a bad day, or, even more escalated into crisis, or maybe, suicide is involved, we absolutely need to lean in and support and reach out and assume that we're the only ones. Oftentimes, especially after a loss, we'll hear from people, I thought so-and-so who's much closer to this person would have recognized and noticed and said something, but we don't know what those people are going through. We don't know if, maybe they don't see it, or they're too close to realize how difficult it is, or maybe they're not in a space that they could be that person. So the worst thing that could happen is that there's multiple people that reach out and say, hey, I'm noticing these things about you and I'm worried about you. I want to talk and check in. So.
Okay. No, I like that, right? Because that's stigma, right? And we're going to continue to talk about that as well.
Yeah.
Question number 2. When we look at the data, what specific populations or communities are seeing the sharpest rise in the risk that they have now? And why is that?
Yeah. So overall, nationally, our Native American and Alaskan Natives are at a high risk. And men, especially middle-aged and older men, are at a high risk. They die more by suicide. However, women attempt more. Individuals living in rural communities, veterans, and then also the LGBTQ youth and young adults experiencing significant higher rates of suicidal thoughts and attempts compared to their heterosexual counterparts. And one thing that really was shocking to me was people working in industries such as construction, mining, and agriculture. Our most recent CDC data that we just got a few weeks ago from the National Violent Death Reporting System said that Indiana had about 57% of young adults ages 18 to 24 who died by suicide in the past 5 years that worked in construction and laboring. So there's also some industry-specific populations of people that we're losing, in addition to our youth, specifically our Black and Brown young people as well. And in Indiana, if you go to afsp.org/statistics, you can find all sorts of different data and statistics. And for Indiana, suicide is the ninth leading cause of death overall in our Hoosier communities. With ages basically 15 to 44, it's the second leading cause of death. So just making sure that we're educating ourselves, supporting one another, and reaching out and leaning in for support is key.
That's tough when I hear about our young people, right? We've talked about that way back, and we're going to continue to fight that fight. And I know there's a lot of challenges that our young people didn't have now that maybe I didn't have, growing up as a young people. However, they're here, and we can't stand on the sidelines, and we've got to help them to be the prosperous adults that they need to be, for sure, 100%. So for a long time, mental health challenges were suffered in silence, from males to females, Black and white. How have you seen the language and the cultural stigma around suicide shift over the last few years?
Yeah, I think we've seen a really positive shift. When I think about what's happening on our college campuses and with our youth, many of them have been impacted by mental health or suicide, either their own personal struggle or they're losing a friend. But really around 2018, we saw this huge group of people who were just coming to our events because they care about mental health. It's important. They didn't have a direct tie, where prior it really was a lot of suicide loss survivors that were coming together. We're also seeing a larger increase of people with lived experience coming forward and sharing their stories of strength and hope, and the mental toughness and resilience that it took for them to navigate their personal struggles and what it felt like to have someone help them, or those types of things. So we've really seen a positive shift, and I'm truly encouraged by that. Even in our older generations of people, we've got nursing homes that are hosting mental health events and things for the families and the residents. And we've got participants in our events. One of our walkers is my grandma. She's going to be 87, and she's one of our oldest walkers, and she hasn't missed a walk in 10 years. And so just making sure that the conversation is happening across a lifespan, it's happening across generations. And while how I grew up might be a little different than the current youth and, what they're facing and experiencing, making sure I have empathy and compassion in a way that it's supportive to them is important. But I'm very encouraged to see the dialogue that's happening in schools, in faith communities, just in the general community for sure.
Awesome. I like that. I'm going to get another question, but then what I'm going to do, I'm going to chime in something that you and I talked about few years ago when I was at another organization. But This question is this: what are some of the less obvious, quiet warning signs that a friend, coworker, family member that may be struggling that the normal eye may not catch?
Yeah, that's a great question. And this is where I say this is why it's important that we all get trained to recognize the warning signs and risk factors, because there might be something that I pick up and notice about, my best friend or my coworker that someone else might not have noticed. Some things could be the way that they're talking, the language. Maybe they're disengaging in things that used to bring them joy, getting rid of things that are valuable or sentimental to them. But it can just be subtle things too, of detachment, disengagement. Or it could even be, it's not always withdrawal. It could be this burst of energy and enthusiasm that, maybe they haven't had for quite some time. And so that shift can also be a warning sign and something for us to make sure that we're reaching out and supporting and getting some resources for people too. But each person is different and unique, which is what makes this so challenging and difficult. Is it's not a single recipe of if A, B, C, then do X, Y, and Z. Or if they say this, then do this, do this. And so that's where those individual relationships and personal connections come together. What we hear frequently and often is, I just needed someone to reach out and ask me how I'm doing and tell me that I mattered and that they cared about me. I don't want to oversimplify it, but I think we undervalue the relationships that we have and the ability that we have to connect and support each other. Those interpersonal relationships between, spouses or neighbors or friends, or a child and a parent, are huge and validating each other and those types of things too. And I think another thing to point out too is this has happened to me personally, where I might be the one to recognize the warning signs or something, but I know that person won't necessarily be able to hear it from me. And so it's perfectly appropriate and fine to tap in someone that we think that they could accept help from or could be receptive to that too. It's not gossiping. It's not any of that for me to say, hey, I've noticed these things about our brother, our coworker, and I know right now they're not able to hear it from me for whatever reason, but would you be able to, reach out and check in on them? Here's some resources that you can use. And I'm here as a support. I just know that they might be more receptive to you too. So kind of sinking back into that village, and kind of assessing how that person might be willing to best accept help or be open to that conversation and dialogue too.
That's a great segue to what I was going. This is off of my question, but it's something I've been thinking about. Back when we met, some of the pushback I received was, we're in America, people need to toughen up. We're a weak society. We're weak-minded. We're just soft, and I was dissuaded by some to not continue with the plight, right? And it took a while to get back to it, but I'm back to it, and I'm never going to have that gap again. So what do you say to those folks who believe in the pull your bootstraps up, tough it out, and you'll be fine? What do you say to those people in the most positive way?
Yeah, I say the strongest people are the ones that reach out for help. And they say, we're not meant to do this life alone. We don't have to pull ourselves up by the bootstraps. Like, we have community, we have resources, we have support for a reason. And I often, depending on the conversation, I'll share about my grandpa. He was a Vietnam and Korean War veteran, and was, in both of those wars and all of those things. And he died by suicide and had severe mental health challenges from that. And I don't think that they would say that a veteran of our country wasn't mentally tough. We didn't have the resources and the supports that he needed back then. But there are so many ways that, it doesn't always have to be where it's, you're sitting in a chair and talking to a therapist. Sometimes it's a combination of different resources. And I think when people say those things, they say that out of fear and not knowing what it actually is, or they say that because it was told to them. So how do we lean in compassionately so that we can say, like, I'm sorry if someone told you had to do that and you were alone navigating this. That wasn't fair to you, and that wasn't kind. And I hope that now there's more resources and a community that has more compassion where we can hold space for you. And I'm sorry that happened to you. That's not always the case. There's some old school people where that's just how they are, but that's not going to stop me from.
We've experienced them all, right? And to this day, even though I still run into that from time to time. And I just nod, said, fair enough. And we going about our business.
Yeah.
So protocols, right? You've got someone that opens up to you and says, yes, I'm thinking about it. I don't know what I'm here for. Is there a protocol? And if there is, share it. And if it's not, what should one do? Talking to, if it's just anyone, it doesn't have to be a family, it could be anyone, says, I'm thinking about doing this. What does Kelsey Aaron say to that person?
So we have some trainings. So we would be on here for 2 days explaining to you all the things to do. So we have some, AFSP has trainings that we offer to help with interventions. But one of the key and vital things, I think, is to ask if that person has a plan. And if they have a plan, finding out what that is so that we can keep them safe from that. That's the most vital. One of my most favorite resources is the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline 988, where I can call or text that number too. I don't have to have all the answers, but I can call and text that number and say, hey, my friend told me this, and I'm not really sure what to do or how to get them help, but I just want to make sure I keep them safe. And they can help walk us through kind of steps and measures to make sure we keep that person safe. The most important thing is that as we're helping someone, we keep ourselves safe, because we're no good if we're, putting ourselves in harm's way, but also separating that individual from whatever method or means that they're choosing, if that's safe for us to do. And that's key. And continuing the conversation, asking open-ended questions and keeping, the dialogue open. And then, if we need to call medics or get them to the hospital or call for additional help, then I can relay that information and say, this is everything that they've said to me, so-and-so, this person, is that accurate? Is that everything that am I relaying everything correctly? If they're in a state where they can affirm or help adjust maybe what I misunderstood or whatever too. So just making sure that we're keeping ourselves safe, and then also making sure we're keeping the environment safe for that individual is key.
Definitely. So I want to go on a personal one here for when I had my situation with Adam back in 2021. And one of the things, he came to me and shared what he shared. And I to this day, I still think about, could I have done something different, right? We had an employer situation where, individual had access to counseling. I felt I want to help, but I don't want to overarch, right? What about that person who gets maybe a conversation? They don't want to go over the top, and the other person doesn't have many people they can speak with. You're that person. You're the epicenter, right? Should you spend more time with that person, maybe on an outing, go to the park? What should you do if you feel like you're the person, you're the only person that they trust, and they shared that with you?
Each situation, each situation is unique, and it's easy to look back in hindsight of, I could have done this, I should have answered the phone faster, I should have, canceled my plans with my family to go, all these things. I do the same thing. We lost our dad by suicide. I do these things in my head where your brain is mean to us and does things. I think, and what I know about your heart is that you showed up exactly how you could and with the resources that you had at the time. And I know that you were exactly what Adam needed in that moment. And what the tragic thing is that, it's not the result that we wanted, but you were the friend and the colleague that needed to show up. And I think it's just having compassion for ourselves after these moments and through these grief journeys when our brains do the woulda, coulda, shouldas. But also being able to vocalize those things too. There's no shame in saying, I wish I could have XYZ, but we're saying that years removed with involvement and engagement with different community partners and things and new resources. I mean, even from 2021 to 2026, there's so many new things. Lots more like virtual resources and therapy that are available that weren't before. Lots of different, community partners and things. So we're in a different landscape, in a different world, looking back, wishing that we had what we have now to keep our loved ones and our friends alive, which is hard. So
definitely. I've got more questions. I'm gonna ask one more, then I'm gonna share screen. And I'm thinking of the final three I've got. So I think I'm gonna go with two. So beyond the national lifelines, 988, what does effective community level prevention look like in schools, workplaces, and neighborhoods? To AFSP and Kelsey.
Well, I can speak specifically for myself, and then I can speak to AFSP. But I think, to make our community smart about mental health, it's a layering system. we don't know who someone's person would be or where they feel most connected. Sometimes our youth, it's the lunch lady. Sometimes it's a coach. For our older community members that, might be living solo or they don't have their family visiting as frequently for whatever reason, making sure that we're their community and supporting one another. I think all of us have bad days, but making sure that we're supporting one another, having compassion and empathy, reaching out to each other non-judgmentally. Oftentimes, especially when we talk to our youth, but we're navigating this, with some older family members right now too, of the big deals to them, really are things, they're okay, but it's their world. And if they're experiencing distress or trauma from something, that's valid. And that is their truth, and making sure that we're getting them the resources that they need. Making sure that our teachers and community members, librarians, neighbors and friends have access to free resources and free programming, and they know about it, so that they can, recognize the warning signs and risk factors. The hope is, I'm CPR certified and I know how to do the Heimlich. The hope is I never, ever have to use it, but I know what to do if a situation comes up. And so we want to liken mental health and suicide prevention in the same way of, our hope is that you don't have to, ask a loved one or a friend directly if they're thinking about suicide, but we want you to be able to have that honest conversation and have the training so that you feel confident in asking those questions and the follow-up that's required, and making sure that finances aren't a barrier for you to have access to show compassion and care.
Definitely. Last one. If someone's listening right now and feels completely isolated and hopeless, what is the one fundamental truth you'd want them to take away from our conversation today?
Yeah. That you matter and that someone cares about you, whether your brain is telling you that that's not true or not, and that the world needs you here. You're always welcome to volunteer with AFSP, no matter where you are in the country. We can help get you connected with your local chapter. I would just encourage you to make sure if you're feeling that way, to reach out to 988 or the crisis text line at 741-741 and connect with a local counselor or support so that you can help get the resources that you deserve to live a full and fulfilled life.
Great. I'm hoping the folks that are watching and listening are really taking notes and jotting this down, right? Because it's so important. And I know that you and I spoke a few weeks ago, and I said, I wanted to do something. I want to bring this to the stage here. I'm hoping folks can see it. So you sent me some things from AFSP, and I want you to speak to what you're looking at right now with regard to the honor beads and what they mean.
Yeah, so our honor beads are a part of our signature fundraiser. So our construction hike for hope, and then our out of the darkness walks. We have out of the darkness walks on campuses in the springtime, and then community out of the darkness walks in the fall. And there are 10 different honor bead colors that symbolize different connections to suicide prevention, with blue being supporting of the cause and supporting of suicide prevention and mental health. And so that's the color that we know almost everybody wears to all of our events. Gold is the loss of a parent. So we lost our dad by suicide in 2001 this November. So this year will be 25 years since our dad passed away. Rainbow is just in support of the LGBTQ community. Silver I wear that in honor of our grandpa, who was a veteran in Vietnam and Korea. And then teal represents someone who supports someone who struggles. And then green is someone who personally struggles themselves. So I also struggle with my mental health, and just making sure that people know that they're not struggling alone. But yeah, there's 10 bead colors in total, but those happen to be my personal honor bead colors that I wear during our events.
Awesome. What I'm going to do, I'm going to scroll down a little bit, and I'm going to give credit to our web designer, Evan Wilson, who's absolutely a Warren Central High School graduate as well, too. And Evan has done a great job of getting that information, uploading it onto the Game Time Network page. And what we've got here, share that information from the links perspective and also the donation piece.
Yeah, so if you visit our afsp.org website, there's tons of different resources from prevention to postvention. We've got all sorts of different resources on the postvention arm, anywhere from our child, teen, and suicide loss booklet and how to have conversations with youth that have been impacted by suicide. Supports and resources like our Healing Conversations program. That's a free program that we offer that's peer-led. So we have AFSP volunteers who are suicide loss survivors. They're a little bit further along in their grief journey and they're able to hold space and have conversations. And we try to pair people by like loss. So if someone's lost a friend, we'll try to connect them with a friend, a volunteer of ours who'd lost a friend, or if they'd lost a parent or a child, because we know those relationships are so unique. So while we all lost our dad by suicide, he was my grandmother's son, and that relationship is different. So it's important that she connects to someone that lost a child. For my aunt, she lost a sibling. And so making sure that she has someone that lost a sibling that she can connect to. And for his friends, those relationships are different. So it's a free program where people can connect via phone or in person, depending on their preference. And there's no timeline. So we have people that are relatively newly bereaved that, request a visit. And then we also have, one that stuck with me forever is from many years ago. I think I might have still been a volunteer. A gentleman was in his late 30s. He was getting married, and his mom decided to tell him that his dad, who died when he was 6, didn't actually die from a heart attack. He actually died by suicide. And so this gentleman was in his late 30s, getting ready, for the happiest time of his life, and then just kind of re-grieving the loss of his father. And so being able to connect with him about that is something that I'll carry that with me for the rest of my life. And it was just a single visit, hour and a half phone call. But he was able to share things with me that maybe he couldn't say to his mom or things like that. So really great program. We also have our Out of the Darkness walks that I mentioned with the honor beads. Registration is up for fall events in Indiana. We have 9 taking place all across the state, with the Indianapolis walk being our largest. It's actually one of the largest in the country too. It was 5th in the nation last year for Out of the Darkness walks out of about 412 walks in the country, which is pretty incredible. They're free to register. They're family friendly. And I would encourage anybody, a mental health advocate, a suicide loss survivor, or someone with lived experience, to attend a walk. If you haven't, bring friends. It's really a hope-filled day and nice event.
Lots of smiles, lots of hugs,
Yes.
lots of tears, right? Remember, I can hold myself back a little bit, but that's okay, because it's okay to cry. Yeah, it's okay to cry, right? And I used to say that, and my mom said it to me before I lost her, right? And it's okay to cry because it shows there's some emotion and you care. So what we've done on our side, just taking a look at this, we've added also the donate now button for AFSP, and that's important. A lot of folks, they bristle when you say, oh, donate. No, this isn't about lining someone's pockets. This is about an opportunity to impact someone who may not have an opportunity to be impacted elsewhere. And if I remember right, Kelsey, there's a dynamic somewhere that speaks about how much money it takes to go to certain things. And I can't remember what I saw it on, but it was a while ago, but I know it's there.
So it was very important to me as a volunteer. I mentioned my 87-year-old grandma and all of that, but I wanted to volunteer somewhere where the money was going to the mission and the funds that we were raising were going to the mission. And our CEO and national council leadership and local chapter leadership are committed to keeping the overhead cost at, I think it's below 20%. So I think 83 cents to every dollar goes to fuel the mission. That helps provide education. So those free programs and resources that I mentioned, we have a research connection coming up next week where we're talking about perinatal support and postpartum support. We also have a men's mental health program coming up next week that's free to the community. We have advocacy at the state and federal level. Our advocates, along with our community partners, were vital in help getting that 1-800 number for suicide prevention down to that 3-digit 988 number. So it's easily recognizable. So our advocates are critical and crucial. I mentioned research. Much of what we know is from AFSP funded research grants, and that then fuels into the education that we provide and the free literature that we distribute, and then support for families and individuals impacted by suicide as well.
Awesome. Awesome. And that's what I wanted to hear, right? You know, it's so important to share this and everything. I'm going to take it off now, but thank you for that part. You know, it's so important, everyone. You know, we're trying to tie in as well. There's a lot of places you can go to hit the donate button for AFSP, not just the Game Time Network, but we have an audience that are sports watchers and viewers, and we want to be sure that it's seen as well here, just like it would be anywhere else. And with that said, you know, Kelsey, this is very impactful. It's going to be very impactful. Your 30 minutes with me. I could be another few hours if you're realistic, if you want to talk about it, right?
Same.
But you know, your support is big, and I want to make public that you can come back on Cots Corner anytime you want to talk about AFSP, suicide prevention. If there is something going on in that calendar month, that calendar week, you've got my number. Just text me and say, "Put me on, coach," and I'll grab the link, and it's going to happen. There's no question. Kelsey at the end there, but there was a lot of good information that she shared over this last 30 minutes, and we'll be sure to share that information. She was speaking about there's some an outing this weekend, Friday for Juneteenth, June 19th, 2026. That'll be on our site as well, and she'll be sharing that information through the AFSP site as well. But I want to make sure everybody was aware that, you know, this is